Joining us in the studio this morning is John Glasgow, our program director with the Association of Illinois Rural and Small Schools. Good morning, John.
Morning.
How are you?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me.
Good. You guys had your big conference during the severe storms.
Yeah, just before actually. We're very glad to have our state's first Rural Ed conference. We had a pretty good turnout and a really engaged audience and a pretty good keynote.
Good. Who was the keynote?
Christian Jackson.
Okay.
He's a young entrepreneur from California who helps rural schools across the country with AI adaptation.
Interesting. You don't necessarily always think of rural schools in California, but they're a lot like Illinois. Outside of LA and that one, geographic area, it's a lot of rural schools.
Definitely. And, interestingly, for our work at AIRS, we actually try and work with our colleagues in California, Texas, Florida, and New York because they have a similar situation where there are tons of rural schools that you don't necessarily see in a very urban-centric state.
Yeah, good point. John, break down Illinois for us. How many rural schools do we have?
Yeah, so Illinois in total has about 862 public school districts. Of those, 491 are rural by our definition, and that's about 57% of the state.
Okay. And you guys focus on, kind of give us the strategy of the Association of Illinois Rural and Small Schools.
Yeah, so we have a big umbrella, and then we have sort of specific projects that I get to work on underneath that. Overall, we are the voice for rural education, advocacy, representation, understanding the narrative, and ensuring that rural schools are visible not only through media opportunities like this, but also our legislators in Springfield and Washington is really the work that we have been doing since 1982.
Okay. Who's on your team?
Yeah, so our administrative team is a really tight-knit group of four. There's myself, I'm program director, like you said. David Ardrey from down south of the state is our executive director. Haley Winkleman is our director of comms. Lisa Litchfield heads up one of our grants. And with me, I get to work with Carly Strom. She's my assistant director on some of my specific work.
Excellent. Carly, a local graduate here, both of Monmouth College and I believe Monmouth Roseville.
Yes.
Okay, good for Carly. She also interned, I think, at Tri-States Public Radio and has done a lot with us here at the station as well.
That's true.
Cool. All right, what are you currently working on?
Yeah, so really my day-to-day work is with this fun initiative that we're doing in partnership with the State Board of Education that we call the Rural Illinois Career Tech Ed Project. It's been 3 years running now, and it really has two goals. Understand what rural districts are doing with career education, what their challenges are, what the opportunities are, and then second, to offer direct local assistance. How can we grow career education beyond what we traditionally think of it as?
Okay. Now, that is a complicated initiative, and here's why. The challenge in our rural areas is opportunity for careers for our students, hence why we've had so many of our students leaving for the suburban parts of our state or other states, and it's for opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is a complex challenge because on the one hand, our rural districts need to find pathways to offer students access to career exploration wherever they want to go, right? But it's limited by what we might actually have locally. And so there's some internal challenges that we found, right? And that might be one of them is just our day-to-day stress in a rural district to operate, right? To stay above water, to ensure students and community is served, makes it difficult sometimes to innovate locally, to find ways to meet student need with what we do have already versus sending them far out.
Yeah, talk to us a little bit about the needs. As you guys have done your research, you've been doing it for at least 3 years on rural schools. Give us an idea of what our challenges are. And we know the opportunities are great, too. We love small rural schools, the opportunity to play sports on Friday and Monday and madrigal singers on Saturday and art on Tuesday. That's the beauty, right? Mm-hmm. What are the challenges?
Yeah. And, I think for anyone listening who knows anything about our schools here, the challenges aren't a surprise whatsoever. What's important about saying them, though, and doing this research is the state didn't have this at all. They only assumed, and their assumptions weren't really even based on reality. So we provided the first ever sort of stock take in data of what it is. Number one, I was able to survey all rural districts in the state. Number one challenge, educators, right? Getting them, keeping them, making sure that they're the quality that they need to be for the classes, right? Close behind that, it's insufficient facilities. Equipment is old. We don't have a lot of space in our older buildings, and then insufficient funding, right? And really that funding is a root cause for so many other challenges.
Okay. insufficient facilities, insufficient funding. Funding, tell us a little bit about that. Is it specific to criteria they need in the classroom, like books? Well, we hope we go back to books, but Chromebooks as well. What specifically do we need funding wise? And maybe it's paying teachers.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, it's kind of everything, right? It's difficult to recruit teachers with the career experience to offer some of these classes, because why would you take a pay cut of at least 50% to become a teacher, right? That's a very stark challenge that we face in career education. But it does come down to sort of the hardware, right? So the books, the computers, the classrooms themselves. But then you also have to think career education is an expensive option, right? Even though it has a direct economic output for students and the community, if you're talking about a traditional shop class, some of that equipment is hundreds of thousands of dollars if you want to be up to date. And that sometimes is an entire budget for an entire district on career ed.
Boy, that's a good point. Especially, I forgot about SHOP.
Yeah.
How important is SHOP to our vocational aspects of career, which those pay very, very well?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's fun. It's kind of a conundrum, right? Again, why we have a bit of an educator shortage. You might have your traditional, sort of shop teacher who is making a certain amount, knowing that the students they're training are going to immediately graduate and make double what that teacher is making, right? It's a very hard environment to recruit and retain talent in.
So what do you do with the information now that you have been able to ascertain what is challenging our rural school districts?
Yeah, so again, sort of twofold. I like doing things on a twofold sometimes. It keeps it simple, right? The most obvious is doing this, right? Just letting people know that we have this information, here's what we know, and putting out some calls to action, right? Here's what we can do with it. So we reach out here locally. We do have digital publications through our AIRS website, airsedu.org. /CTE, but I also do engage with national organizations as well. So the National CTE Association, the National Rural Education Association, all just to get the word out there. I'd say that's sort of the storytelling and writing bit that I like to do. But there's also this other arm of direct assistance, right? So the second part of this whole project is, great, we've learned some things, we see some things, we know some things, what are we going to do about it, right? And so we've tried to do some pilot programs over the past couple of years.
Tell us about those.
Yeah, for me, it really comes down to looking at what are the unique strengths of rural districts, right? So you talked earlier about students in a rural district have this opportunity to be broadly engaged,
Yes.
right? To do a lot of different things. Another sort of asset to being in a rural district is simply flexibility and freedom, right? Teachers consistently across the nation in a rural district will say, I have way more autonomy to create the class I want, to lead the class I want, and to change with students in time, right? So I took that as a starting point to say, well, what else could we do differently that we might not normally do? So one that I think might appeal to your listeners is with ag education, right? Ag, the most offered CT course in rural Illinois districts. What's difficult, though, is we also need a lot of computer science skills, but that's very difficult for rural districts to do. So one pilot we've been working on is allowing ag ed classes to teach computer science skills.
Okay. Yes, we love our FFA. We love our 4-H. We love our ag teachers. We love all teachers. It's coming up National Teacher Appreciation Week in May. So this is interesting, but the combination of ag education and computer science, do you have two teachers in a utopian, wave the magic wand moment there? Or because finding one teacher with both sets of skills will be challenging.
That's true. Really, it comes down to you just need one teacher. You need an ag teacher.
Okay.
Right? And an ag teacher with an interest and an ability to want to go out and learn these skills. So what we do for the CS Skills sort of course, so to speak, is it's a workshop for ag teachers to work with our partners at the Learning Technology Center to see how they can incorporate what's called a microbit into lessons they already have. And essentially students can code these small microcontrollers to be light sensors, moisture sensors, speed sensors, right? It's sensory computing. So you only need an ag teacher.
Well, you know what? Our ag teachers and our farmers and all of them, they go on to get science degrees and all kinds of things. So computer science would just be another aspect to add to the ever-changing technology that we seem to be embracing somewhat. But definitely in agriculture, it's been helpful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Most definitely.
Interesting. All right. We're talking with John Glasgow. He's the program director with the Association of Illinois Rural and Small Schools. Okay. Anything else you're wanting people to know about your career tech ed project?
Yeah, I think just making folks broadly aware of where our rural schools are at and where we ought to be, right? So a lot of folks find our reporting online talks about that there's actually kind of a misalignment between what we're able to offer now and where we actually need to be. So what I mean by that, we asked all 491 rural districts, what types of career education do you offer? There's 16 different categories, which I could go in if folks are interested. And essentially, they said if they offered it and where they offer it, right? And you see an interesting inverse. So on the one hand, we have ag ed, your business, and arts and family and consumer science are your largest sort of offerings for CTE. But when you look in your average rural area, who are your largest employers, right? Your hospital system is one. Your education system is one, right? But those are some of the least offered pathways in our rural districts. So in terms of how are we empowering our local kids to serve the local economy, that's one current sector, right? If you start looking down the road, Illinois over the next 10 years is projected in every single region to grow in digital technology jobs, energy jobs, right? Transportation and logistics is pretty high, but we don't even offer that hardly in rural districts. So letting folks know the misalignment and then to think internally about, well, how can I engage with the work that I do to help sort of expose a student to different career options locally.
Okay. Well, that makes some sense.
Yeah.
We're trying to definitely have a better future for our students in our local rural areas for sure. And you're right. Healthcare, energy, all that stuff's a huge player in the next 10 years. And computer science, huge. It's been huge for a long time. So we need to catch up. But like you say, forest for the trees. The principals, the superintendents, the teachers, they're all trying every day just to make sure they get through the day and get these students taken care of, so that whole 50,000 feet view, and that needs to be helpful from the ISBE and folks like yourself, because they'll do a good job with it.
That's true. I think one other thing to say here that really heartened me, I always put optional narrative questions at the end of my surveys. Just if a school wants to say anything, they can. I don't prompt it. I just say anything else you want to say. I think overwhelmingly, as we know, education's a hard space. Our rural districts have a lot of challenges. But overwhelmingly, rural districts responded with pride for what they do have at the end of the day. And that sense of pride and encouragement to want to do more is really what carries this project home at the end of the day. That rural districts want to do more. They're very proud of it. And we're going to be here as the state association to help them do it.
We're very lucky to have the ones we have locally here.
Yes.
Yeah, and you get to work with those here, right here in Monmouth and in the local area, right? Roseville and United. Good.
Absolutely.
Good. Okay. Well, you went to Monmouth?
I did.
Are you a Zipper or are you a Titan?
I was a Titan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So very proud about that.
Yeah. John, anything else you want people to know this morning?
I'd say just look us up on airsedu.org/CTE. You mentioned Teacher Appreciation Week coming up.
Yes.
So we have started last year Illinois' Rural Teacher of the Year. So if anybody knows of a teacher that they're particularly fond of or proud of, I'd say go onto our site and nominate them, and we'll see if they get Rural Teacher of the Year.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming in.
Appreciate you having me.
John Glasgow with us. He is our program director with the Association of Illinois Rural and Small Schools.